In April of 46 BC, in the city of Utica on the North African coast, a Roman senator sat alone in his room as the night deepened. Outside, the remnants of a defeated army waited in silence. Inside, the senator read. He read Plato's dialogue on the immortality of the soul, the Phaedo. He read it once. He read it again. Then he placed the scroll aside, checked that his sword was sharp, and lay down to sleep. His name was Marcus Porcius Cato. He was 51 years old. And by morning, he would be dead by his own hand, not because he had lost the will to live, but because he had refused to outlive the Roman Republic. This is the story of the man who chose integrity over survival, and why that choice still echoes across 2,000 years. To understand Cato's final act, you have to understand the man. Marcus Porcius Cato, known to history as Cato the Younger, was born in 95 BC into one of Rome's most distinguished plebeian families. His great-grandfather was Cato the Elder, the famed censor who ended every speech with the words, "Carthage must be destroyed." But where his ancestor was known for harsh discipline and political cunning, the younger Cato became known for something far more dangerous in ancient Rome: absolute, unbending integrity. From his earliest youth, Cato was different. The historian Plutarch tells us that even as a boy, Cato's answers to questions were firm and unyielding. When other Roman children were playing games, Cato was studying philosophy. When his tutors praised him, he received their praise with indifference. When they criticized him, he did not flinch. His schoolmates called him Chinese letter, but they respected him. They sensed, even then, that this boy was made of something different from ordinary men. As a young man, Cato dedicated himself to Stoic philosophy, the school of thought founded in Athens by Zeno of Citium. Stoicism taught that virtue was the only good, that external circumstances were indifferent, and that a wise man should be as unmoved by fortune as a rock in a storm. Cato took these lessons literally. He walked barefoot through the streets of Rome to harden himself against discomfort. He wore a rough, dark toga when others wore fine white linen. He drank the same cheap wine as his slaves. He was not performing austerity for show. He simply believed that a man should need nothing beyond what was necessary. In 63 BC, when Cato was 32 years old, Rome faced its first great crisis of his political career. The conspiracy of Catiline threatened to overthrow the Republic. The consul Cicero uncovered the plot and arrested the conspirators, but a debate arose in the Senate over what to do with them. Julius Caesar argued for leniency. He proposed distributing the men among Italian cities for indefinite detention. It was a merciful position, popular with the crowd. Cato rose to speak. He argued that the conspirators must be executed, not out of cruelty, he said, but because mercy to traitors was cruelty to the Republic. He spoke with such force that the Senate shifted. The conspirators were put to death, and Caesar never forgot that Cato had opposed him. This was the pattern of Cato's political life. Year after year, as Caesar's power grew, Cato stood against him. When Caesar sought triumphs and commands, Cato blocked them. When Caesar's allies proposed illegal extensions of his authority, Cato vetoed them. When Caesar tried to win popularity through land reforms that bypassed the Senate, Cato called him out for subverting the Constitution. And through it all, Cato never compromised. He never made deals. He never looked the other way for political advantage. In a system built on patronage, bribery, and mutual favors, Cato refused to play the game. He was, in the words of the historian Sallust, a man who preferred to be good rather than to seem good. But integrity has a cost. By 50 BC, Caesar had conquered Gaul, amassed a loyal army, and was demanding the right to stand for consul in absentia while keeping his command. The Senate was divided. Some wanted to accommodate Caesar to avoid war. Others wanted to resist him. Cato led the resistance. On January 10, 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, an act of war against the Roman Republic. The civil war had begun. Cato fled Rome with the Optimates, the conservative senators who opposed Caesar. They joined Pompey the Great, Caesar's former ally turned rival. What followed was a tragic retreat across the Roman world. After Pompey's disastrous defeat at Pharsalus in 48 BC, Cato gathered the remnants of the Republican forces and marched them across deserts to North Africa. He never wavered. His soldiers adored him, not because he was a great general, but because he shared their hardships. He ate what they ate. He marched when they marched. He was the last man to sleep and the first to wake. In Utica, the Republican forces made their final stand. Metellus Scipio took command of the army. Cato administered the city. When Scipio marched out to meet Caesar at Thapsus in February 46 BC, Cato remained behind, waiting. The battle was a disaster. Scipio was routed. Caesar's legions swept through the Republican army. The survivors fled back to Utica. The cause of the Republic was finished. Now Cato faced his final choice. Caesar was offering pardons. Many of Cato's own men were already surrendering. Caesar had a reputation for clemency. He would likely spare Cato's life and even restore him to a position of honor. The path of survival was open. But for Cato, it was not a choice at all. He had spent his entire life fighting for the Republic. He had defined himself by his opposition to tyranny. To accept Caesar's pardon would be to accept Caesar's rule. To live under a tyrant was, in Cato's Stoic view, worse than death. A man's integrity was the one thing he truly owned. Lose that, and nothing was left. So on that night in Utica, Cato made his decision. He dined with his friends and his son. The conversation was cheerful. He discussed philosophy, praised the Stoic principle that the wise man alone is free, and that every fool is a slave. When his friends grew suspicious of his calm mood, he assured them he had no intention of harming himself. After the meal, he retired to his room. He found his sword had been removed by his son and his friends who feared what he might do. He asked for it back calmly. When they refused, he pretended to relent. He asked for a book, Plato's Phaedo, the dialogue about the immortality of the soul. He read. When the guards fell asleep, he retrieved his sword from where it had been hidden. He stabbed himself in the abdomen. The wound was not immediately fatal. His friends heard him fall and rushed in. Doctors were summoned. They tried to bind his wound. Cato pushed them away, tore open the bandages, and with his own hands pulled out his entrails until he died. He was 51 years old. When Caesar heard the news, he is reported to have said, "Cato, I begrudge you your death, for you begrudged me the chance to spare you." It was a generous sentiment, but it missed the point. Cato did not want Caesar's pardon. He did not want to live in a world where one man ruled Rome. He had made his choice long before that night, in every small decision, every refusal to compromise. Every moment he chose principle over convenience. What does this story mean for you, right now in your life? Cato's lesson is not that you must die for your principles. It is that principles are worth living by. Every day you face choices between what is easy and what is right. Maybe no one will know which you chose. Maybe the compromise is small. Another time you look away from an injustice at work. Another time you stay silent when you should speak. Another time you take the easier path. Stoicism says that these small compromises are not small. Each one chips away at who you are. Over time, a person who compromises constantly becomes someone who does not know what they truly believe. They become hollow, shaped by circumstance rather than conviction. The philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave decades after Cato died, put it this way: "If you would be free, Do not wish for anything that depends on others, for then you will be a slave. Cato understood this better than anyone. He was free not because he controlled events, but because he refused to let events control him. He lost the war. He lost his life, but he never lost himself. So the question his story leaves you with is this: when no one is watching, when the cost is high, when the easy path and the right path diverge, which will you choose? Cato's answer echoes across 2 millennia. He chose integrity, and in choosing it, he became immortal. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, consider subscribing. One story from history